screen here. So share and can everyone see this?
Yes.
That part?
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Eyrun Bernhardsdottir. I work for Head Resourcing. I'm a senior consultant there, and I was also the resource lead for the Scottish Tech Army when it first started and for the next couple of years. So we are just going to talk now about CV writing and its preparation, and it is quite broad and it's obviously quite a big subject. So just apologies if I don't get into the level of detail that you're hoping for, but there should be time at the end for any questions as well. There will be a slight focus on the volunteering aspects because this is for the Scottish Tech Army. And there will be a slight focus as well on gaining experience in your kind of chosen field, because I know that a lot of you will be their students or career changes. So we'll start off by talking just about how to get experience, something to put on your CV in the first place, before moving on to CV writing and cover letters. I'll do a couple of slides as well about volunteering and your CV and how to present volunteer work on your CV before moving on to interview and then post-interview, and like I say, any questions at the end. So gaining experience is quite difficult. It's quite a daunting task when you've got just a blank sheet of paper in front of you and this needs to be your CV, and you're told, you know, this is your chance to tell your story, and where do you actually begin? How do you get that experience to put on the CV in the first place? The reality is that there's just not that many entry-level roles on offer. And the entry-level roles that are on offer sometimes as well actually require some experience, which is not great. So there are different ways to get that experience. There is volunteer work through the likes of the Scottish Tech Army. You could seek out a mentor if you know a family member or family friend that's in a position to be able to support you and mentor you. That is one way to kind of gain insight into the working world and some potential experience. There are graduate schemes, and most large organisations have some forms of graduate schemes. They are very competitive. They are very good, but they are very competitive, and they are long term. There are also apprenticeship schemes and internship schemes which are promoted by the government quite a lot. I think that we have to be realistic when it comes to volunteer work and the apprenticeships and internships, that they are, volunteer work is not paid. Apprenticeship schemes pay below minimum wage. It's not for everyone, and not everyone will be in a position where they can just do that, because people will still have bills to pay, and that's just the reality of it. But for if it is at the right time in your career and you're able to do it, it's a really good way to gain that experience. One thing I would also say is to make sure that you're aware of the transferability of what you have done so far. So you do have experience, whether it's through studying or through non-relevant work. There are transferable skills there. Working on group projects, you're working as part of a team, you're meeting deadlines, you are gaining all of these skills and gaining experience, even though it might not be in the particular field that you wish to work in. Just a bit about the Scottish Tech Army and how to use the STA to gain experience. They have a buddy program. You can buddy up with more experienced people, and they are sometimes in a position where they'll be able to mentor you as well. It gives you a chance to gain experience. You can get involved in projects and you can help out charities and get hands-on experience. You're also going to be able to learn new skills. So if, for instance, you are coming from Coachland and you've done the development course and you want to be a developer, but you might not have oversight of projects before, and it gives you an opportunity to kind of see the full life cycle of whatever support the charity may need. It's also just a good thing to have to be able to bulk up your CV. It is, you know, what you can learn, and the transferable skills that you pick up are really important, and they definitely provide valuable experience to have in your CV. Like I say as well, the skills will be transferable. So even if you have finished that code scanning course, you know you want to be a developer, learning to gather requirements or to work with stakeholders, or learning different systems, or even, you know, just using Jira, whatever it may be, those are all transferable skills that you can pick up through volunteering with the SPA. And we'll go into more detail about how to present your volunteering work as part of your CV later, but it's just important to understand that it is work, it is experience, it is volunteering, but it's certainly an achievement, and it is certainly something that can be presented on your CV as such. Now, writing your CV, as I mentioned, it is quite daunting. You've got that blank piece of paper, and where do you begin? So a good place to start is to identify your career roadmap. So where do you want to go? What is the final endpoint for you, or not necessarily the final, but the endpoint that you would like your career to go to? And what steps do you need to take to get there? Think about what you've achieved so far. Where are you on this road towards your career goal? And have a think as well about where you can actually add value to organizations, and make sure that those are the skills that you are highlighting in your CV. One thing I would also say is just to remember to be specific. Know the dates that you were in this course, or that you were, you know, studying, or that you were working in a particular role, because attention to detail on CV is really important. And if any errors like that get picked up, it can just add extra hassle there that you don't want. What to include on your CV? So you start off with your name, your contact details, so that you can get in touch. It's enough just to have your phone number and your email address, and area. You can be as specific in terms of what you want to add, but you know, you can have your postcode, you can have your full address, you can have Edinburgh, whatever it may be, but it's important that people know where you are based as well. Start off with your profile and your objective. So just a couple of sentences about yourself and what you are seeking to achieve. And then you go into your education, professional designation, any qualifications and certifications that you might have. Have an area, it can be either on the top or the bottom of the CV, wherever you feel comfortable. I would normally recommend having it below the profile and above either the education and the work experience, or in between there somewhere, but where you talk about your key skills and your key achievements, what you are proud of, and kind of what sums you up in a few bullet points. And then there will need to be a bit about your previous work experience as well. There are different types of CVs, and I'm going to go briefly into this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you can have a traditional chronological CV, you can have a skills-based CV, or a combination of both. So the chronological one is the traditional CV. It just highlights your experience in reverse chronological. So it's based on your work experience, and it showcases what you've done so far in your career. So this is the format that you would use if you have been working and you are seeking to stay in the same career, and you're just moving either sideways or upwards, or whatever it may be, but it's in the same field. A skills-based or functional CV is more focused on your skills, as the name suggests. So if you are a graduate, for instance, or you are looking to change your career, you don't have that much experience, you will want to highlight the skills that you do have, and you will want to bring that to the attention of the recruiter or HR or the hiring manager on your CV. And then there is a combination of both. I think is probably the realistic format that most people end up, because the reality is that individuals will have different circumstances. The only thing to kind of bear in mind is just not to have it too long. If you are combining both, it can sometimes just be a bit drawn out. So yeah, bear that in mind. Here are examples of these CVs. As you can see, all these examples look pretty similar. It's just about what is where. So the chronological CV puts the experience directly below the professional profile before the education and the professional development, whereas the functional CV will list skills over experience and education. The combined one combines them into competencies and experience and education. You might actually find that your education is the most relevant. That's below your profile, but professional profile is kind of the key thing that's always there at the top. And then you can list the rest depending on your circumstances. As I mentioned, just a few things about volunteering and how to present the volunteering work that you've done on your CV. It's difficult, and I've had a conversation with a few volunteers from the STA that it's just sometimes a bit unclear about like how to put it in there, how to word it, how to explain what you were doing. So remember that this is really valuable experience, and it should certainly go into your experience section on your CV. It shouldn't just be mentioned as one bullet point somewhere hidden in your extracurricular activities. This is experience, and this is experience gained while giving back to the community. It will give you a chance to actually use the theory that you've studied if you're coming from, you know, if you just graduated, or if you're coming from postcamp or another course, and to apply it in the real world. You will have built relationships and networks throughout there, and it shows that you are continually learning. So you may have finished your course, or you may have, you know, be seeking a career change or whatever it may be, but this shows that you are the step that you take to learn new things and to get involved. So it's really important. Try to be specific on the dates where possible. So what month and year you joined the STA or joined whatever volunteering organisation you may have joined. And where possible, try to break down the project work as well with dates if possible. I know it's difficult because you might join actually, you know, it might not be an end-to-end project for a charity that you're doing. It might just be that you're helping with a specific thing, but making it clear what it is and breaking it down, it just makes it easier to read, and it's easier to understand what you delivered as a volunteer. And I mentioned this before, do not underestimate the impact that you will have had. You have ensured that work is being done for charities that would not have been done otherwise. And that is really important. And that is real work. That is, it's volunteering work that is very real, and it needs to be presented as such on your CV. Just a few tips about writing your CV. Don't waffle on, don't have it too long, keep it short and sweet and focused. Make sure that the focus is on your accomplishments. It is all well and good having your day-to-day duties, and it is important to have your day-to-day duties there, but focus on the accomplishments and why those duties matter and why they make a difference to the organisation. Make sure that you have identified your key skills and your key technical abilities. It is important that it's focused around, the CV needs to be focused around that, particularly if you are dealing with applicant tracking systems. They are sometimes the kind of first barrier to get through. They can be a bit keyword focused because that's all that they can do. And you might need to get through that before your CV actually gets reviewed by a person. So understanding the key skills required by a job and then the key skills that you have and marrying that can be quite important. Even if it is being read by a person, it's also, they are not going to be in a position to read between the lines. You need to spell it out. That's really important. Keep it professional, use professional language, use a professional email address. That's a very common one to see, and just make sure that your email address is ideally just your name and some numbers, you know, cutesy nicknames or anything that you've had from school. When you are writing your CV, tailor it for each role and refer back to the requirement sections on job descriptions. Each organisation will call the same thing, maybe use different language and different vocabulary to describe the same things. So if you are able to refer back to their language, it can be very useful for whoever is reviewing your CV to understand what you have done and why it is relevant. Also, update your CV regularly. You are not going to remember what you achieved in a year's time. So if you have done something that you are proud of, or if you are taking on additional duties or anything along those lines, make sure that it is in your CV and that it is there. That you didn't have to format it properly or anything like that, but just jot down the key things so that when it comes to you applying for a job, it's there. And just remember, as I said, your CV is your story. People will look at it and they will see where you came from, where you want to go, and what you have done so far in between. So just remember that. Make sure it's you and that it's truthful and that it represents you as well. A lot of organizations will also ask for a cover letter. This is a page, maybe half a page to a page, which is going to be specific for each application. So you will not reuse cover letters that you have used before. You might use the same sort of skeleton for it as such, but you will need to tailor it for each application. It will be based on details from the job description and then research that you have done on the organization as well. It is a chance for you to sell you and who you are, but it's also a chance for you to show that you understand the organization and what they require and what they are looking for and why you are a good fit. You can basically, it allows you to go into detail that there isn't space for in the CV, so that you can tell them without having to make your CV very long or very personal and chatty. Saying that, make sure that it's not too long, make sure that it's concise. You don't want to just be rambling on. It needs to, whatever you put in the cover letter needs to be there for a reason, and it needs to be to a point. And that should be based on the job description and any additional research around the organization that you have done. Now, you have written your CV and your cover letter and you've got an interview, right? And for a lot of people, this can be quite daunting. And there's a lot of preparation to do before interviews, and there is. That's just how it is. You need to research the company. You will obviously have some understanding of it from having written your cover letter and applied for the role, but research the company, research the area. If it's a large company, which area within the company are you interviewing for? And research the interviewers as well. If you can, look them up on LinkedIn, see what their career path has been, how long they have been at the organization, what do they do, and so that you can kind of just get an understanding of who they are as well. It's important as well to prepare for the interview method. We'll go into details on each of these and the correct format as well. If it's a competency-based interview, technical interview, it could be a motivational one, or it could be a mixture of all of these, and then it's just to make sure that you are prepared for whatever format they will be asking you to do. And you also need to prepare some questions for the interviews and specific examples for their potential questions. So you will need to read through your CV and you will need to have a think about specific examples of things that are relevant to the role that you'll be able to showcase. And we'll go into a bit more detail about that later on. So a telephone interview, if it's a telephone interview, it's normally, or it's often, I guess, rather than normally, a first stage where they will follow it up with either a face-to-face or an online interview. Make sure that you are in a quiet place. Don't go to the local cafe or the local pub. Make sure it's quiet and make sure that you've got signal as well. Make use of the format. They can't see you. So print out your CV, print out the job description, print out anything relevant that you have researched beforehand and have it in front of you and take notes, because they're not going to see you scribbling down, but this is your chance to kind of get the broader overview of the role and to make sure that you're taking notes on anything that feels important to you rather than just having to remember it. For a face-to-face interview, you will prepare slightly differently in terms of the format. You need to know the address, you need to know where you're going, make sure it's the correct address as well. If there are multiple offices of an organization, for instance, make sure you put the right one and know who you are asking for. So if there is a front desk, for instance, you need to know who's going to be interviewing you, and to be able to notify them that you are there. Ask about the dress code. So ask either the manager or HR or the recruiter you're speaking to. Should you wear a full suit? Is it smart casual? Are you interviewing on Friday? Do they do dress on Fridays? I would always say are on the side of smart, but you don't really want to be sitting there in a full suit and tie when the rest of them are wearing Hawaiian shirts and shorts. It's just not, it's just not right, and you wouldn't feel comfortable. So be aware of kind of the dress culture. Be on time. Do not be late. Make sure that you've got time to sign in at reception if there is a reception. I would say probably no later than sort of 5 minutes before, but also don't be too early. Throw away your chewing gum. Don't have a mint or anything like that. Make sure that is that your mouth is empty, and switch off your phone or put it on airplane mode. If you can hear it buzzing in your bag or in your pocket, it's just really distracting. So it's basic, but it's important. And then online interviews are actually what we are seeing as common form for an interview still, which is surprising. We're seeing more face-to-face interviews now, but we're still seeing a lot of online interviews. And to prepare for that method, you need to make sure that you have access to a quiet place. Don't be tempted to go to a cafe or a library or any of those kinds of places to afraid to be somewhere where it's you. Make sure that your technology works, your laptop, your camera, your microphone. Test that all out in advance and become familiar with whatever platform they are using as well. So they might use Teams or Zoom or WebEx, they might use something else, and just familiarize yourself with that. Have a professional background. So don't have, the one where it looks like you're on a beach or something like that, and either blur your background or just make sure that your background is clean and tidy. Don't have piles of washing behind you. Make sure it's professional looking. Look at the camera and the interviewer. And this is really difficult because it can be, your camera isn't where you're going to be looking when they are speaking to you. And you're going to be looking at their face when you are speaking back. So if your camera is in an awkward place, high up, for instance, or something like that, maybe just make the interviewer aware of that beforehand, so they don't think that you're just avoiding eye contact. So you're not, it's just via the internet, it's just different. And finally, ask about the dress code as you would for a face-to-face interview, and dress appropriately and not just on top. If there is any form of emergency, you may need to stand up and you're wearing pajama bottoms. It's not going to be a good look. So just make sure that you're dressed as if you were going to a face-to-face interview and prepared externally that way. Now, the different interview formats. So touched upon these earlier. There's competency-based interviews, there are technical interviews, and there can be motivational interviews as well. Most interviews will be some form of combination of all of these. Competency-based interviews are situational. So they are based on competencies, and they are looking for you to give examples of, it's going to be a tell me about a time when type of question. I would always recommend, regardless of the format of the interview, that you consider the STAR format of answering questions. That is situation, task, action, and result. It means that you are framing your answers in a way that keeps it focused. You are not going to be waffling on, about a particular situation and forget to tell them about the action you took and the end result. So it is a good way to frame whatever answer you are giving, whether it is as a direct result of a competency-based question or a technical question or whatever it may be. These are example-based. So for instance, if you're asked about a time that you worked under pressure, and you can tell them about a project that you had at university, the situation was that you had to deliver an essay by next week. What was the task? So you had to do your research, and then you had to write the essay. What was the action that you took? Where did you do your research? Who did you speak to? And then how did you ensure that you were delivering on time and that you had enough time to finish this, and then the end result, which may be that you got a first class mark for that particular essay. These are just a good way, like I said, to kind of frame things anyway, whenever you are interviewing. Technical interviews are just a bit more specific. So they will be, well, technical. So they might ask you about specific technologies, or they might just be a wee bit about the kind of the softer skills, but they will be about what you have done and how you have done it in detail, not in the broader competency or in the kind of the broader example, but it's about the detail. So they might ask you, you know, about using Java as part of your development, and how do you code in Java, where do you seek further information, those types of things. And then the final format is the motivational one, and this, I'd be very surprised to see this on its own, but it is part of like graduate schemes, for instance, when interviewing, they're looking to see your motivation for the role and for the company, the career path that you want to go on. They're trying to get to know you. Every interview will have a motivational aspect to it, and it is something that is really worth you thinking about. What is your motivation for doing the role? Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to work for this particular company? How does it fit into your career roadmap? Who are you? How would you fit in? You know, all of those kinds of things. Why do you want to do this job, basically? Just a couple of things about during the interview. So as I said, be specific and use examples, and have answers and examples prepared, ideally using the STAR methodology. Make sure you answer the question. There is no rush. Listen to the question that they are asking you and then answer it clearly. Don't start answering a different question or giving an example that is not relevant. If you start on an example that is not relevant, you can change it. Just have a think about your answers though. And once they have asked a question, just take a few seconds and think about what are they asking, why are they asking it, and what is a good example for you to use. Do not speak badly of previous employers or workplaces, even if they ask you, you know, why are you looking for a job? Don't say it's because your boss is a horrible person or whatever it may be. It's not professional. It doesn't look good. And make sure that you have prepared questions for them as well. Even if you feel that most of the questions have been answered already, in the interview, you can absolutely reaffirm a point. So you can say, you know, can you just confirm that this is, you know, what the role entails, or this would be the particular focus in the first few months, or whatever it may be. But you can absolutely reaffirm points as well. And actually it shows that you've been listening as well during the interview. So it can be quite a good way to show that you have taken it in and that you understand what the role is about. And I would also ask at the end of the interview if any additional questions for you, or if there's anything that they would like you to elaborate on. Just a very quick one about code tests, because when I did this previously, there was a lot of people that came from Codes Clan and are developers. So code tests may be part of the interview process. It depends on the employer how they do this. They might do an observed coding test where they watch you code. They might ask you to complete a coding challenge in advance. They might just ask you to go into a breakout room on the day, either online or in person, and just do a technical test. And they might just focus on asking very specific technical questions as part of the questions, as part of the Q&A basically of the interview. It's not to show that you are the best coder in the world at the moment. It is about showing that you know how to get answers. If you don't know what to do, that you know where to look, and that you know basically where to seek the right answers and where to look for them, rather than about you getting it right in the first place. So now, gaining confidence for the interview, particularly if you've not interviewed often before, they can be really daunting. They really can be. You're being put under a lot of pressure. So all you can do is make sure that you are prepared and that you have done what you could do to prepare for the interview. So know the role, know the organization, seek that information out. The internet has so much on it. There is no excuse not to have done the basic research on the organization. Try to understand where the role fits in, and if possible, sort of, what the broader context of the role within the organization, but that's not always possible. Also, know your CV. You applied for the role, they saw your CV, and they want to interview you. So there is clearly something there that they view as being relevant for the role. Know what you have done, know what you say you have done, and what you have highlighted on your CV as being the most important part. Those are the things that will probably have stood out to them. To prepare, you can do some role play. You can do it with a parent or a friend or a partner or a colleague or whoever, but you can just kind of play it out if you are feeling nervous. That can be a good way of just practicing your answers. And be aware of your skills, your transferable skills. If they ask you questions that you might not have a specific example of, knowing your broader skill set is just really helpful for you to be able to get examples and to kind of think about examples on the spot. Be professional, use professional language, come across professionally, don't be too friendly, and most importantly, be yourself. They are going to get to know you. They are going to want to see who you are, and you can only really just be yourself. Make sure that that comes across as well, who you are, what you want. This is as much as an opportunity for you as it is for them to find out information about the role and the company, and if it's somewhere where you want to work and what you want to do. Just a few bits for after the interview. It's good to kind of go away and reflect. Don't make any decisions necessarily on the spot. Think about what they told you. Think about what they told you about the role. How did they come across? How did they represent the organization? And just take some time just to actually reflect on that, take that all in. Do follow up. So you can send thank you emails to either the managers or the recruiters or HR for an interview, depending on who you have contact with. Also, just follow up for feedback, because it is really important to get feedback. This is your chance to develop yourself for the future. You might not get the role. That happens. There's only, normally there's one person that is going to get that role, and you cannot control other people's experiences, and you cannot control any of that. All you can do is think about how you came across, how you answered questions, and the examples that you had ready. So use it as a learning tool. I think it's actually not a bad thing just to get some interview experience in as well, because talking to a lot of people about yourself, it can just be quite daunting, and it can be quite it's something that you might not have done before, and it doesn't always feel the kind of the natural thing. So just make sure that whatever feedback they give you, you take
of mobility problems.
Hello.
Greater details about what is ailing Her Majesty. The short answer is no. We know that
No.
she had to cancel very last minute a trip to Northern Ireland, and then there was
Hi, Eyrun, can you hear us?
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Don't know what happened there.
Oh, have I frozen?
Yeah, you froze.
Oh, sorry. I just got a little thing popping up about my internet connection.
Yeah.
Was it okay during that? Was it jumping a lot during the presentation?
No, it was fine. Just you froze the last couple minutes.
Right. Okay. Sorry about that. Apologies for that. But are there any questions from anyone or anything that you would like me to go into more detail on? No.
Hi,
Yeah.
Hi, it's Craig here. It's good to speak to you again. Listen, I'm a bit of an old hand at this. One of the problems I have is actually trying to narrow down my CV. There's quite a lot on it after maybe sort of 30 odd years at work. And although some of the sort of technical stuff is perhaps dated, a lot of the competencies are relevant. And I'm always saying to myself, maybe I should keep that in there. You know, just how do I have it succinct? Any thoughts on that, please?
So what I would think about is, if those competencies that you picked up 30 years ago, if you have also done that in previous sort of in roles since then, just to make sure that they are here there, it is unlikely to be relevant what you were doing 30 years ago if you have been doing it continuously since then. If it is something that you have done which is very specific and is very required for a particular role, then you can either mention it just at the top, just to say, you know, previously, you know, under your key skills or something like that, highlight them there, or kind of just have it at the bottom, but short, brief, and maybe shorten the other roles kind of between them. You do need to cut something out though, and it is difficult when you've got a lot of experience, but you need to have a think about what were the common themes throughout there, because if you have got experience from 30 years ago, it's a particular competency or whatever it may be, is that something you've also had from another more recent role, which might make it more relevant.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like it? And like I said, please just email me if you're not comfortable asking. I know that there's a lot of people on and stuff, so please do just email me, message me on LinkedIn or whatever, if there is anything that comes up. You're on mute, Michael.
Yeah, I was just, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I've not got any
Thank you very
questions.
much.
Thank you.
And I'm just gonna pause, stop the recording now.